Welcome, everybody, to a new episode of our podcast, Zici. I am Laura Popescu.
And I am Călin Stan.
And we will be your host for the day. As our special guest for this episode is Her Excellency, Mrs. Ulla Krauss-Nussbaumer, the Ambassador of Austria to Romania. Your Excellency, we are honored and truly delighted to have you here with us at the Laude-Reut Educational Complex today, and as a special guest on our podcast.
Yeah, so to begin, we would love to hear about your journey. How did you know that diplomacy was the right path for you?
First of all, very happy to be here today with you both at your beautiful school. It makes me wanting to go back to school and actually learning all the things I haven't learned at that time because I found it very boring. I'm sure in this school I hadn't found it boring. I had loved to learn all the things you have the possibility to learn. How did I start my journey into diplomacy? By curiosity, I would say. I was always interested in other countries and in other cultures, and wanted to see new things and to make new experiences, to meet new people. And so already when I studied law in Vienna, during this period, I spent one semester in Paris at the university, studying European law, and then after my studies I went to the College of Bruges. At that time, you must imagine, Austria hasn't been a member of the European community. We even hadn't applied at that moment. So studying European law was pretty exotic at that time, and studying abroad at that time was also not so usual. Many of my friends studied abroad, but we were rather a strange bunch of people, and we heard quite often from our friends, "Why you studied law? Why are you not staying in Austria?" Being a lawyer means staying back home, but me and my friends seems we always had this touch of wanting to see other things as well. So I started with this European law journey, not knowing that we will enter the European Union. And that brought me to the Foreign Ministry because I got fascinated by the European idea, and and by working in this context of people working for one idea, which is the European idea, and the Foreign Ministry at that time was actually the place to be if you wanted to work in this field. And so I tried the concours. And I managed to get in, and actually my first duty in the ministry as a very young diplomat was to be in the team who negotiated then our accession to the European Union, which then was not the European Union. And that was very, very, very exciting and very interesting and very intensive, and I definitely don't want to miss that, and I knew that actually I'm in the right place.
That's also very insightful because, for example, I want to study law and then apply to Romania's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and then join their diplomatic corps. So that's really cool for me to hear.
Today, actually, you have many more possibilities if you study law. At that time, law firms have been purely national. But then from mid-90s onwards, law firms became international law firms, and I remember many of the big Austrian law firms who also are here in Romania, like Schönherr. Yeah? I remember when there were important Austrian law firms, but just being Austrian law firms. And then in the mid-90s, this changed. And so nowadays, when you study law, you have so many possibilities, also internationally, to be active, and not only being a diplomat, but also a lawyer or in businesses. This developed so much and so quickly broadened up so much over the last 30 years. So actually I envy you about all these possibilities you will have with your law studies.
We have to say that we are lucky, yes. We acknowledge that as well.
You've been Austria's ambassador to Romania ever since last autumn. What can you say has been the most rewarding part of your role here?
Difficult to say. There are so many rewarding elements of being an Austrian ambassador to Romania. Actually, for an Austrian ambassador, being in Romania is a very, very honorable and very, very lucky position. And this is specifically not only because Romania is a beautiful country, but because our relations are so old and so long-standing, and not only because Transylvania, Bukovina, and the Banat belong to the Habsburg Empire, but because the relations also to Romania as the Kingdom of Romania go very, very far back. So we built actually on next year. Next year we celebrate 165 years of bilateral relations between Austria and Romania. And actually, this year, I realized 2 days ago, we celebrate 105 years diplomatic relations between Romania and the Republic of Austria. So these are some of the longest-standing official diplomatic relations Romania has with another country. So, and this is a basis and a fundament which is so strong because the mutual understanding is strong because of this long common history. That this is a very, very specific situation for ambassador, being in a country which knows your own country so well, and vice versa. So actually it's a huge privilege to be posted here in Romania as Austrian ambassador.
And I'm guessing that with our very long history, we also have shared hardships and shared victories together. So I think the two cultures are very interlinked, and that's beautiful that you were the one that was able to manage those relations. However, you did mention that prior to being Austria's ambassador to Romania, you were Austria's ambassador to Tunisia. And we were wondering, how did the process of changing from these two very different countries affect you, both personally and professionally?
Apart from the fact that the sun here is not shining 365 days and that the winter are most harsher, despite the fact that actually I loved the snow in Bucharest 2 weeks ago. It was so, so beautiful. In general, you know, as an ambassador, shifting from one post to the other, of course, each posting has its differences, but the work is always very similar because you have your professional goals, you have your aspirations, and they are similar regardless the country where you serve in, because you always represent the same country, and your duties and your priorities of your country stay the same. And one thing one never has to forget, actually, that diplomacy is not the success of the individual. It's always the success of the team. And we, as ambassadors, maybe we are the face, but we are just representing our country. Together with our team and together with our partners, we have to try via good relationships and cooperation and the right timing, the right terms, the right tone, the right thing to do or actually not to do, or the right smile in the right moment. The right smile on the wrong moment wouldn't be a good idea. To achieve our goal And the goal in diplomacy is building bridges between people and building bridges between countries, and finding the elements which connect us, and overcome the problems we might have, to find a common way together. And this is true in every country we serve. The sensibilities might be different, the way how to do things might be different, but the goal is always the same. So in this context, from the point of view professionally, it's not such a big difference. Mm-hmm. The biggest difference is always for the family who comes with you, because they change the whole surrounding. Mm-hmm. So you change your kind of your office table and your computer, but what you find in the computer is always the same. But for them, everything changes. Yeah? The friends, the kindergarten, the garden, the whatever, the horse. For them, it's much more difficult than for the one actually working in diplomacy.
Especially if I might add that when taking the job of an ambassador, you are prepared to take these risks and sacrifice maybe your autonomy because you are sent to a specific country. But I do agree with you that the family, they didn't necessarily enter this agreement themselves. And so as an ambassador, you acknowledge the risk beforehand. So I would get why would you say the family is the most affected.
So you have to... your partner has to know what he's getting into it, and the kids, you never can ask the kids because normally they are not born at that moment. So, but for them it's very enriching, but it's not easy.
Yeah, of course.
Of course. You mentioned studying law in Vienna and Paris, and I was going to ask, what is one valuable lesson that you've learned during your career that you believe can never be fully taught in school or just in general by someone else?
Actually, I believe you learn it here in your school. And I think that's just to be open and to be curious and to listen to others and not to stop asking and not to stop learning and not to stop trying. I believe that might be one of the most valuable lessons.
Oh, and on the topic of valuable lessons, is there anything you learned about people as a whole while working in various countries and settings?
Maybe I didn't learn it, but I was confirmed in my firm belief that how you approach people makes the whole difference. Mm-hmm. And if you approach people with interest and empathy, in the best belief that to build good and strong relationships with them, this will work out. In general, not always, but in general, I believe that this is the best receipt for that, and that's the same all over the world. Mm-hmm.
We were talking about culture just now, and I know that you spent a couple of years promoting Austrian culture, like when you led the Austrian Cultural Forum in Warsaw, which you were talking to us about before. Why do you think culture matters so much in connecting countries? And I know you've already said a couple of words about that. And most importantly, how does Austria promote its culture in Romania specifically?
Culture, okay, for an Austrian, culture is kind of our strong power. So culture is a soft power, but for us, it's a major topic. And if Austria is known for something in the world, is its culture. Mm-hmm. Not only on the 1st of January when everybody is listening to the New Year's concert, but in general. But art and culture is not only one of the essential components of Austrian identity, actually. But there, it is a very, very important component of our international relations, and not only of Austria's international relations, but the belief that culture is a soft power, which is important for relations in general. When you look back at the Cold War, for example, when nothing was possible, everything was closed, nobody spoke to anybody from the other side, but the cultural exchange always remained open. So via culture, there was some exchange, and via culture, sometimes you can transport things you couldn't transport directly. So to give you an example, our cultural forum in Tehran, so we have one of the very few European embassies open in Tehran, and we have a very big cultural forum there, and they're also having language classes, and they also have a choir. And now you know that in very Islamic countries, women are not allowed to sing, and even less to perform. And there, in this choir, everybody is singing together and they're performing together. And when the forum is inviting Austrian artists, they specifically have a target to invite female Austrian artists, for performing publicly. So that's kind of a underneath message, but it is a message, and you can do that without bringing anyone into danger, and still you're doing the message, and that's the power of culture. You can transmit ideas, not with the stick, so to say, but in a soft level, and I believe this is a very, very important tool. And the other thing is that cultural events and exchange is a good way of exchanging people, of bringing people together, of creating encounters. So the cultural forum in Warsaw, which is now since nearly 70 years old, for example, during the Cold War and during the very difficult times in Poland, when Poland was really very closed, it was the place where the opposition went for reading Western newspapers, for reading Western books, for exchanging with one another. So all the Polish prime ministers, more or less, at a certain period of the time, were there and discussed their ideas there in the premises of the Austrian Cultural Institute, like in a safe haven, and it was in a cultural context somehow. So I think culture has a very, very important role to play, and also in bringing people together. If you think about the orchestra of Barenboim, he created with Israeli and Palestinian young musicians. Yeah, I think this is a wonderful example what culture can do, also in very difficult circumstances. So I was always very happy being able to work in the cultural field. Also because when you're working in the cultural field, you're doing projects, and doing project means you see some results, and I like to see results. So and you get in touch with very interesting people you normally only know from the screen or from television, and you can exchange with them, and it broadens your horizon incredibly, actually. So here in Bucharest, we have the Austrian Cultural Forum, which is not very big but very active, and it is an integral part of the embassy, because for us the foreign cultural policy is part of the foreign policy. So it's not done by the cultural ministry or by the Ministry of Science. It's part of the foreign ministry. This is very different from country to country. We are pretty small, but we are pretty active. And last year, actually, the Austrian Cultural Forum organized more than 170 events with more than 100 projects in nearly 70 places all around Romania. And what we are very much looking for is organizing events also outside of Bucharest, because like in every capital, Bucharest is so busy and so much is going on. And and obviously all the artists want to be present in Bucharest, but actually the public is much more interested outside of the capital, and that goes for every country, everywhere in the world. So we always try to do a lot of events all over the country, and we are very much helped by this as well, by the fact that Austria has 4 Austrian libraries in Romania, who are adjacent to the universities. So we are very grateful to the universities for giving us this opportunity and for hosting these Austrian libraries. And we have them in Timișoara, in Bucharest, in Timișoara, in Iași, and in Cluj. And so some of the events we are doing, specifically readings of writers and so on, but sometimes also exhibitions on climate. We are doing together with them, and they are like small hubs all over Romania, which helps us being more present all over Romania, because you have a very big country, actually.
Yeah. Very diverse as well geographically.
Yeah. Very diverse, very diverse.
We're lucky.
Very beautiful. Yeah, absolutely.
But Austria is quite diverse as well.
Yeah, but we don't have the sea.
Yeah, that's the only thing.
We are missing that one. But we have better slopes.
Yeah,
so,
we don't have slopes nearly as good as you do.
But you have pretty nice slopes. I have been close to Sibiu 1 month ago, because our honorary consul is doing the ski cup of the Austrian honorary consulate over there, and it's Platinisch.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, it's an Austrian who is preparing all the slopes and organizing the surroundings, and the conditions were wonderful. So apart from the fact that the weather was wonderful, but the slopes were wonderful. It was really, really very, very enjoyable. So
we're happy you liked it.
Yes. So you have pretty nice slopes as well.
Austria is also a very beautiful country. I've never been to Austria, but our class is going to go this summer with our head teacher, and we hope to learn a lot about Austrian culture while we're there, culture and history.
And you already know where you will go?
We're going to go to Vienna. Yeah, we're going to visit. We have our head teacher is a history teacher, and she's going to talk to us about the history of Vienna.
But there's a lot to see in Vienna, and you will find many similarities, actually. So you will not find, sometimes you will not find yourself like in a foreign country. You will see many things you know from here. And actually you have many great Romanians who studied in Austria, like Titu Maiorescu.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, he went to school in my old school, and he finished his studies at the Theresianum, which is the most renowned gymnasium in Austria until now, and he finished as best of his class, actually. So, and there are many more really, but Enescu, they all have been there, they all studied there, and I know there is the Romanian embassy in Vienna, together with historians, is thinking of making a research of all the famous Romanians who have lived in Romania, in Vienna.
Yeah.
And then nowadays we got very famous Romanian, like the former director of the State Opera, Jan Hollander, who comes from Timișoara, and Dornhelm, I don't know if you know him, he's a film director. He nearly won an Oscar once, who is also from Timișoara, so no, there are a lot of links. I'm sure you will like it.
We're proud to hear that Romanians are doing good in Vienna.
We were talking about ties between countries, and I was going to ask, there are a lot of Austrian companies here in Romania. What do you think is the role of an embassy in boosting economic ties between two countries?
Actually, one of the key roles of an Austrian embassy all across the globe is to support the Austrian economy and Austrian businesses, together with the office of the Austrian Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce has international offices in most capitals where we also have embassies, and we work closely together. So what you have to do can be very varied. So it depends really on the occasion. What makes it very special here in Romania is that here in Romania we have so many Austrian companies on the ground, and actually that Austria is the second largest investor in Romania after Germany, which is in itself quite remarkable because Austria is only 1/10 of Germany. So we have more than 4,000 Austrian companies here in Romania, and they create more than 100,000 jobs, which is really quite a lot, and they create them in every field. But that brings me again back to our historic links, actually, because you could ask why is it that Austria, as a quite small country, is so present here in Romania, and I believe this goes back to our long historic traditions, and to the fact that Romania has not been foreign for Austrian businesses, because before 1945, you're too young, but not for 1945. Even me, I am too young for that. So, but you may know Meindl Café, for example. You find it someplace.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's an Austrian business. I think it's 150 years old now. So Romanians drank Meindl Café already before 1945, you know, and you have the brick manufacturer Wienerberger. At that time it was called Drasche, but it doesn't matter, it's the same. They built their houses with Wienerberger before 1945, and they ate Mannerschnitten. I don't know if you know Mannerschnitten.
I'm not
okay. Sure. You have to go to the OMV fuel station, and there you will find them. But before, you found them everywhere. Yeah. Or Lobmeier is a very, very famous Viennese tableware business, very beautiful, 250 years old. You find this tableware in Peles Castle. Yeah. So their grandfathers have strongly been in business with Romania, and not only in the Banat and in Transylvania, but with Romania even before the First World War. So it was pretty natural for them coming back.
Yeah.
So and because it was natural, they tried again, they came back, and then they were very successful. They liked it a lot here, and so many more came. And actually, many of the kind of, to say, first movers, even they are now all retired, they never left Romania. They are all in retirement here in Romania because they felt so much in love with your countries. But what I wanted to mention as well regarding Austrian investments here, because one always knows about OMV and about banks and insurances, but actually the largest amount of businesses are in medium-sized and family-run enterprises, are in manufacturing, and what's common to all of them is actually that all these investments are really long-term and mutually beneficial. And what is important as well to these businesses is actually that the knowledge transfer, the know-how transfer, the creation of local values, of training is very important, and that they reinvest what they gain here in Romania. So the money and the wealth which is created via these businesses stays in Romania, and I believe this is a very, very important factor. So, and they all want to increase and continue to increase. So, and there's a very great successful story at the moment. I'm sure you read it all in the newspapers that now the Austrian firm Apport, they managed to get through with the first tunnel on a highway in Romania, on the highway between Pitești and Sibiu. So I believe we are all looking forward of being quicker in Sibiu when this whole thing is finished. So.
Well, you mentioned Austria being the second largest investor in Romania, and you also mentioned big deals such as the Erste Group acquiring a majority stake in the Romanian Commercial Bank, which I told you is one of our strategic partners, but also small deals in different sectors like manufacturing and family-run businesses. We were wondering, what sectors do you believe hold the most potential for future investments?
I believe if you look around you, it's definitely everything to do with the Green Deal, or like your energy minister says, also smart Green Deal and renewable energy, e-mobility, sustainability. I believe it's, these are the big topics of the time. Digital transformation as well, infrastructure. I think there's still a lot of potential in enhancing infrastructure, urban technology, smart cities. So all this conglomerate of different fields are fields where we Austria and Romania share very, very, very strong mutual interests, and where we definitely have some potential to even further strengthen our cooperation and successfully strengthen our cooperation. So.
Perfect. So there's a lot to work at, but it's good that we have what to do.
I know, absolutely. It's the future, so we have to do it.
Yeah.
You mentioned mutual connections between Romanians and Austrians. And for a more lighthearted question, what do you think is one important value that both Austrians and Romanians share?
Our love for our country, for our history, for our marvelous countryside. I think these are values for our traditions as well. I think that then our traditions somehow coincide in a very nice way as well. So yeah, I believe this looking into the future and being open to the future, but not forgetting where you come from.
And Ms. Ambassador, how did you adapt uniquely to Romania as a new country?
So before the turn of the century. I spent around the turn of the century. Actually, I spent some years in Berlin, which then that was only 10 years after the fall of the wall, and then, as you mentioned, I was posted to Warsaw, a former communist country in the east. So from this part, I was, I think, pretty well prepared to come in a part of Europe, which during my youth was actually closed for us. And in Poland, I encountered something similar. I encountered here because historically both parts have been part of the Habsburg Empire. So this sort of architectural déjà vu impressions I had in the south of Poland, I definitely have them when I am in the Banat or in Transylvania, but actually I have them as well when I'm in Bucharest, and that's something you maybe wouldn't realize. The funny thing is that the Roman Catholic Cathedral here in Bucharest was built by the same German-born but Viennese architect who built Vienna City Hall. And the Palace Castle was built by the grandfather, an Austrian architect named Doderer, and he was the great-grandfather of one of the most famous Austrian writers writing the Strudelhofstiege. And actually, on the first page of the Strudelhofstiege, there's a reference to a certain Dr. Negria, who is a Romanian physician working in Vienna. But the most fascinating example of these déjà vus is that actually the Choral Temple, I learned, is an quasi exact replica of the great synagogue in Vienna, which has been destroyed in 1938. So when the Choral Temple was restored, they traveled to Vienna to finding the old maps of the Viennese synagogue, and they renovated the temple here with the help of these plans. And I really found this very fascinating. So wherever I go in Bucharest, I get some déjà vus. So I don't feel foreign and strange in your city at all.
Fortunately,
Glad
there are
to
good.
hear that.
Yeah, there are good déjà vus.
Absolutely.
I was wondering, I was very curious about this when I was creating the questions, because as an ambassador, I imagine you have to balance both your home country's interests and your desire to further relations between, in this case, Austria and Romania. How do you manage these differing interests in which they may not necessarily align?
Somehow, as ambassador, you have two heads. One head, of course, is you're in your host country. You have to represent the interests of your country, but at the same time, you are also the person who back home then tries to make understand your host country and the ways in which your host country work, what are their crucial interests. So, because if you manage to make this understand, you find solutions much easier.
Yeah.
So this balancing of interests is actually at the core of our work. And sometimes it's not that easy neither. And there is a reason why all foreign ministries all over the world have the rule that they change their diplomatic personnel every 4 years. if you don't like the country you are in, they are happy that you go after 4 years. But most of us always like the country you are in. So, and if you stay too long in one country and you like it, then there is the danger that you start to have a shift.
Of course.
And you grow kind of to native. And this shift happens around the 5th and the 6th year. So this period of 4 years actually is a very, very good rule, and everybody has it. And there's a reason. There's a reason for that, because you don't go native in 4 years, and you you stay, even if you like the country, but you stay emotionally still more detached. But actually, this juggling between both countries is one of the most interesting parts of our work, and it's the way to find solutions.
Yeah, of course.
So and to find compromises. So it's at the core, and actually, it's not that difficult.
I see.
Or at least in the countries I had the pleasure to be, it was not that difficult.
And you mentioned that even though you have to become detached emotionally from your host country, that's why you have to kind of convince your own country, your home country, what you are doing is good in the host country and everything that's about that country, in your case Tunisia and now Romania. I was wondering, how would you describe the current diplomatic relations between Austria and Romania?
I would say that our relations, and due to the long historic relations, due to the strong economic relations, are really, really excellent. So, as we all know, over the last 2 years, we had kind of a certain hiccup, and but we have overcome this. This for sure now, and our relations are so strong and so good that in the long term, I'm convinced it will be forgotten, and but also in this context, the businesses, for example, they have been one of the biggest advocates for Romania in Austria for finding a solution.
Yeah.
So thanks to our really good relations, we always have overcome all challenges, and that will be also the same in the future. And at the moment, with 2 foreign ministers, both knowing the other country pretty well, I think we are on the best of all tracks for further strengthening and further enhancing our relations.
Yeah, and definitely it's good to know that such a long-standing relations, diplomatic relations, I mean, between the two countries is not necessarily affected by a small bump in the road like it was the last 2 years. But would you focus on specific areas for further collaboration? In the diplomatic region, I mean.
I think apart from the economy, we are very strong partners in the European Union together. We are obviously supporting Ukraine and Moldova very strongly. We are both partners also in supporting the enlargement towards the Western Balkan countries in the EU. So we have many topics in common. We have the Danube,
Yeah.
so which is pretty important as well. And last year we had the presidency over the Danube strategy, and this year, there is a regional cooperation of regions adjacent to the Danube, which is was initiated by Niederösterreich, which is one of the regions in Austria, which is called Arge Donauländer. And this year, actually, Karash Severin is the president of this organization. So we are waiting for many common projects together in this context as well. So and the Danube is very important also economically. So,
for trade, I guess.
For trade, it's very, very important. So and it's a beautiful area for tourism. So.
On the topic of the EU, many of us here and many students in Romania in general care a lot about Europe's future. What do you think are the biggest challenges that we will have to face together, us in the EU, in the next coming years?
I believe the biggest challenge is that we have to stay united. Unity. Like the saying is the unity in diversity, and I think that's the secret of the success of the EU, and unity is crucial. And unity you can only achieve when you talk to each other. So I think this is really the biggest challenge, and the EU already overcame a lot of different crises, and we always came out stronger, and I'm pretty confident that it will be the same this time as well.
You mentioned that it's important talking together, so I would just like to mention that it's good that we have this talk. But I was wondering more about your personal life, beyond official engagements. Are there any projects or initiatives you are particularly passionate about that people might not be aware of?
Actually, I'm pretty passionate about a lot of things. I like going to the opera and to the museums and to the theater. Okay, here it's a little bit tricky because my Romanian is not that good at the moment. But I also like hiking and walking in the mountains. So actually, Romania is the perfect place.
Yeah.
Many of us here at Laude-Reut are dreaming of a career in diplomacy. So what would be one bit of advice or insight that you would like us to know before we take this path that you think we should know?
One is obvious, and that's just stay open and curious. And the other one is the one I mentioned before. That you have to be conscious that it takes... it asks a lot of your family and of your partner, and if you have them, of your kids. And that's something one has to be aware of. And this is something one has to be aware of regardless if you're a girl or boy. Because in former days, it was the typical question you were asked as a woman. Nowadays, it goes for both. And when one is entering this career and very fascinated by it, and everything is excited, obviously you don't think about that. But in the long term, it's important, and actually having a good private network is very, very important, because everything always changes, and people need kind of a safe place, and obviously the easiest if you have a loving family around you. But the second best is also to try to stay in touch with your friends back home, at least with the closest, because you always come back home, but you don't want to feel like a stranger when you come back home, because you moved on, everybody else moved on, and you lost touch. Nowadays, with modern technology, that this is much, much easier than before. But don't forget about the guys back home. Try that they come to visit you and try to meet them when you're back home, so that you have some stability in your private life. I think this is really very, very important in the long run.
And back to the professional life, is there a peak of what you want to achieve in Romania?
I just would like to be able to enhance our relationship further, to enhance our personal exchange further. So after COVID and all the other things, to have more direct visits again. So I would love if we could do our share in enhancing this direct exchange between our countries.
Yeah, that's it.
You mentioned in your free time you enjoy going to the opera or the theater, but also in regards to your more professional life, do you have like a daily ritual that brings, let's say, effervescence or vitality to your work? Like maybe something you enjoy doing before work?
Yeah, having the coffee in the morning, first thing in the morning. What I think is very, very lovely every day is we have a small dog, and the embassy and the residence, it's the same building. It's just behind a small but a very nice park. And I very much enjoy just sneaking out from time to time with the dog as an excuse to go out in the park. And it was specifically beautiful now when it was everything full of snow. But now it's lovely because you see all the things starting to blossom and coming out, and the fresh green. So, yeah, that's something very nice.
Almost finishing, unfortunately, we were wondering, if you wouldn't be a diplomat, what other career would you choose?
Actually, before studying law, I was quite on the verge of studying medicine. And I still believe that I had like that. Because I find it very, it seems that I'm pretty curious. So I find it fascinating to figure out what things are behind something. And I love to read all these scientific articles I don't understand anything about, but I was still fascinated about it. So, yeah, maybe it had become doctor.
As you mentioned curiosity a lot, I am curious now. Was there any point in which, a specific point in which you said, okay, I'm going to go into diplomacy more than medicine, or I like law more than medicine?
It was a very, actually the moment I decided for law, the medicine route closed somehow. And that was a very rather emotional decision. I remember, just to get an idea about what this whole thing would be about and what law is about, I joined a friend who then was in her first year in the Roman law lesson, and so I accompanied her, and the professor talked about how it is when someone steals a slave from his Roman master, and how he gets punished, and how this is different to if he steals a pig. I still remember that. And I was fascinated by this deduction method. Actually, how you come from one point to the other, and like in a crossword puzzle. And then I decided to study law, so it was not very reflected, actually.
But I'm guessing it was quite an emotional decision, choosing to do something for the rest of your life and closing the door.
I fear I was not that reflected on the time. It was just I said, okay, that's what to do.
It's like an
That's
impulse.
I would like to do. And okay, I'm coming from a family of lawyers, so it was not very far. Because both my parents are lawyers. But yeah, I thought, no, that's fun. Sounds great. Sounds interesting. Let's do it. So all the other reflections came later.
Well, Your Excellency, here at our podcast, What's New, and for our Romanian viewers, Ce mai zici, we have a tradition in which our guests leave a few thoughts in our book of honor. And we would be delighted if you could do so.
With great pleasure.
So you to please write on the right side, because on the left side there will be a picture, and here is a pen. Anything you like. It's your own thoughts.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was an insightful conversation.
Yes, Your Excellency, we sincerely thank you for coming. It has been a truly warm and enriching conversations. And to the viewers, we sincerely thank you for watching.
It was absolutely my pleasure being with you, and you're a great podcast host.
Thank you.
Thank you.